Before midnight, the English countryside begins to tremble. At first it sounds like distant thunder rolling across the dark fields. Then the noise grows deeper, heavier, more mechanical. 1 by 1, then 10 by 10. Then, in an endless stream, bomber engines roar to life across hundreds of airfields scattered through eastern and central England. Windows shake in nearby villages.
If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below.
Mechanics step back from spinning propellers. Ground crews pull wheel chocks away with numb hands. Young men, many barely in their 20s, grip throttles and check instruments under the faint red glow of cockpit lights. And above them, hidden by cloud and darkness, lies one of the most dangerous targets in Europe. The city is Cologne. The date is May 30th, 1942. Within a few hours, the sky over Western Germany will contain more aircraft than any city on Earth has ever seen at one time. More than 1,000 bombers of the Royal Air Force are preparing to cross the North Sea and strike the industrial heart of Germany. For the men climbing into these aircraft, the mission feels almost impossible. For the civilians sleeping in Cologne, there is no warning yet that their city is about to become the center of a terrifying experiment. And for Britain, this night is a gamble that could change the war forever. The story begins months earlier, when Britain is exhausted and under pressure. Nearly 3 years after war began, Germany still controls most of Europe. The Soviet Union is fighting desperately in the east. The United States has recently entered the war, but American forces are only beginning to mobilize. On land, Britain has not yet returned to the continent in force. At sea, the Battle of the Atlantic is still dangerous. British leaders need proof that they can strike directly at Germany. Inside Bomber Command headquarters, Air Marshal Arthur Harris believes he has the answer. Harris is blunt, hard-driving, and absolutely convinced that heavy bombing can cripple Germany's ability to fight. He takes command of RAF Bomber Command in February 1942. But he inherits a problem. Night bombing is difficult. Navigation is poor. Many bombs miss their targets entirely. Aircraft losses remain severe. Critics question whether the whole strategy is worth the cost. Harris knows he needs one overwhelming success, so he proposes something audacious. Instead of sending a few hundred bombers, he will send more than 1,000 in a single night against one city. The objective is practical and psychological at the same time. If enough bombers arrive together, they can saturate defenses, overwhelm firefighters, and cause damage on a scale never seen before. If the raid succeeds, it will prove Bomber Command can deliver a decisive blow. But there is one problem. Bomber Command does not have 1,000 frontline bombers ready for action. Harris solves this by pulling aircraft and crews from every possible source. Operational training units contribute instructors and students. Coastal Command releases some aircraft. Reserve crews are called in. Older bombers that would not normally fly such a mission are prepared. Experienced veterans are mixed with men who have never seen combat. By the end of May, the number is finally reached: 1,047 aircraft. It is the largest bomber force ever assembled. The target is Cologne, a major industrial and transportation center on the Rhine River. The city contains railway yards, factories, chemical plants, and military workshops. It is also one of Germany's oldest and most populated cities, dominated by the towering cathedral whose dark silhouette can be seen for miles. On the afternoon of May 30, crews receive their briefing. The room is crowded. Cigarette smoke hangs in the air. Men sit shoulder to shoulder, some calm, some trying not to show fear. Curtains are drawn. Security is tight. Then The cover is pulled from the target map. A red line stretches across the North Sea to western Germany. Cologne. A low murmur passes through the room. The scale of the mission becomes clear as details are explained. Aircraft will take off in carefully timed waves. New navigation methods and concentrated routing are designed to funnel bombers over the target in about 90 minutes. Pathfinder techniques are still in their early stages, so timing and discipline are critical. Bomb loads include high explosives to rip open roofs and walls, followed by thousands of incendiaries intended to start fires across the city. The crews understand the danger. The greatest threat may not be enemy fighters, it may be each other. With so many bombers flying through the same corridors at night, a single navigation mistake could lead to catastrophic mid-air collisions. Clouds, icing, engine failures, anti-aircraft fire, and fatigue add to the risk, yet no one leaves. Across England, the preparations begin. Armorers wheel bombs beneath aircraft. Mechanics make final checks on engines and hydraulics. Wireless operators test radios. Navigators spread charts across folding tables. Pilots drink tea they barely taste. As darkness falls, the first aircraft taxi onto grass and concrete runways. Among them are Avro Lancasters, Handley Page Halifaxes, Short Stirlings, Vickers Wellingtons, Armstrong, Whitworth Whitleys, and other bombers of different sizes and ages. Some are powerful and modern, others are already considered outdated. Tonight, they all have one purpose. The sound is unforgettable. Hundreds of engines merge into a continuous roar. You can almost feel the vibration through the soil. Farm animals stir in distant fields. Villagers step to their windows and watch navigation lights moving into the sky like glowing beads. One after another, bombers lift into the darkness. At first, the departures seem orderly. Then, the pace intensifies. Aircraft climb, circle, and form streams heading east. From above, England appears as a dim patchwork of black fields and faint lights. Behind each aircraft, propellers carve invisible paths through the cold night air. In the cockpits, crews settle into routines. Pilots hold headings with careful precision. Navigators check winds and drift. Wireless operators listen for signals. Gunners scan the darkness for shapes that may or may not be there. Hours pass in tense monotony. Below, the North Sea reflects occasional moonlight through breaks in the cloud. Some crews encounter turbulence. Others see ice forming on windscreens. In one aircraft, an engine runs rough but continues. In another, a novice navigator fights to identify a coastline hidden by haze. Still, the bomber stream moves forward. To German radar stations along the coast, the picture is alarming. Operators at the Kamm-Huber line, Germany's integrated night defense system, detect growing formations. At first they assume the signals may represent several separate raids. Then the scale becomes unmistakable. This is not a diversion. This is a mass attack. Telephone lines buzz. Fighter controllers scramble night fighters. Searchlight units prepare. Anti-aircraft batteries around Cologne stand ready. Air raid sirens begin to sound. In Cologne, many residents have heard alarms before. Some move to shelters with practiced efficiency. Others hesitate, believing this raid will be like many previous attacks, noisy, frightening, but limited. Then they hear the engines. The sound starts as a distant hum in the western sky. It keeps growing and growing. Soon it becomes a deep mechanical wave that seems to fill the entire night. People look upward and realize the noise does not fade. It only intensifies. Shortly after midnight, the first RAF bombers reach Cologne. Target indicators are primitive by later standards, but the concentration works. Bombs begin to fall. High explosives smash buildings, rupture gas mains, and shatter water pipes. Seconds later, Thousands of incendiaries rain down, punching through rooftops and igniting attics, warehouses and factories. Within minutes, fires appear across the city. Then, the main force arrives. Aircraft cross the target one after another in rapid succession. Bomb aimers peer through their sights as flak bursts around them in black and orange flashes. Pilots hold steady despite violent turbulence from exploding shells. Gunners watch tracer rounds arc upward like glowing spears. Inside the city, the experience is overwhelming. The ground shakes repeatedly. Dust fills shelters. Electric power fails in many districts. Streets vanish under smoke and debris. Firefighters rush to outbreaks, only to find hydrants damaged and water pressure falling. Telephone communications are disrupted. Burning embers drift through the air and ignite new fires far from the first impacts. The noise is almost impossible to describe. Bombs whistle downward. Detonations crack like thunder directly overhead. Buildings groan and collapse. Glass shatters in every direction. Anti-aircraft guns pound from the outskirts and rooftops. Over all of it, the endless drone of engines continues. For the first time, defenders understand they are facing not a raid, but a flood. Above the city, the bombers encounter danger at every second. Searchlights stab through the smoke and lock onto aircraft. Once caught, a bomber becomes a bright target for anti-aircraft gunners. Pilots dive into cloud or make violent evasive turns. Some bombers are hit and continue burning as they struggle to release their loads. German night fighters attack where they can, but the concentration of aircraft complicates interception. The bomber stream is so dense that the defense system is stretched beyond anything it was designed to handle. Even so, losses mount. A Wellington disappears into cloud after being struck by flak. A Halifax limps away on one engine. A Sterling loses altitude and vanishes in the darkness. In several aircraft, crew members are wounded but remain at their stations. And still, more bombers arrive. The raid lasts roughly 90 minutes, but for those beneath it, time seems to stop. Entire blocks ignite. Railway lines are twisted. Factories burn. Warehouses erupt in sheets of flame. Smoke rises thousands of feet into the sky, illuminated from below by hundreds of fires. The great cathedral remains standing, its dark towers looming over a city of sparks and ash. As the final bombers turn west, many crews look back. What they see is unforgettable. Cologne is burning from horizon to horizon. The glow is so intense that returning aircraft can see it from great distance. Some navigators use the fire itself as a reference point while setting course for home. But the mission is only half over. The return flight is often the most dangerous part of any bombing operation. Fuel is lower. Fatigue sets in. Weather changes. Damaged aircraft struggle to maintain altitude. Night fighters continue to hunt over the Low Countries and the North Sea. In one bomber, hydraulic failure makes landing uncertain. In another, a wounded rear gunner fights to remain conscious. Navigators recheck calculations again and again, knowing a small error could send them into the sea. Over the North Sea, the vast formation begins to thin. Aircraft separate and head toward their home stations. Dawn slowly lightens the eastern horizon. The roar that had shaken Germany now returns to England in scattered groups. Ground crews wait beside runways, counting silhouettes. Every returning aircraft is a relief. Bombers touch down with empty bomb bays and exhausted crews. Some land with shredded fuselages and punctured fuel tanks. Others arrive with dead or wounded aboard. Pilots shut down engines and sit in silence for a few moments, hands still gripping controls they have held for 8 or 10 hours. Then the questions begin. Did everyone make it back? How bad was it? Did it work? As debriefings continue, reports from crews paint a consistent picture. Fires were widespread. Defenses were overwhelmed. The target was clearly hit on a massive scale. Photographic reconnaissance soon confirms the results. The raid caused extensive destruction across Cologne. Thousands of buildings were damaged or destroyed. Industrial sites, transportation facilities, and residential areas suffered heavily. Large fires spread throughout the city. Tens of thousands of civilians were temporarily displaced. The human cost is severe. Hundreds of people are killed and many more injured. Families emerge from shelters to find homes reduced to rubble. Streets are blocked with debris. Smoke lingers over the Rhine as emergency services struggle to restore order. For Britain, the mission is announced as a major success. The numbers are extraordinary. Of the 1,047 aircraft dispatched, 43 are lost. A painful cost, but lower than many feared, given the scale of the operation. The concentration technique has worked. Bomber Command has demonstrated that it can gather and deliver a force of unprecedented size. Newspapers seize on the story. The phrase 1,000 bomber raid captures public imagination. After years of uncertainty, Britain has delivered a visible and dramatic blow to Germany. Morale rises. Political leaders cite the raid as proof that the offensive against Germany is gaining strength. For Arthur Harris, the result is exactly what he needed. The success strengthens his authority and secures support for expanding the strategic bombing campaign. In the months and years that follow, Bomber Command will launch increasingly large attacks against cities across Germany. But victory in the air carries a profound cost. Inside RAF stations, the empty beds are impossible to ignore. 43 aircraft means hundreds of airmen missing, dead, captured, or lost at sea. Friends scan casualty boards in silence. Mechanics who prepared aircraft the night before now learn which crews will not return. Many of the men who flew to Cologne were not hardened veterans. Some were instructors and trainees temporarily drawn into combat. For them, the raid is both a historic achievement and a brutal introduction to the realities of strategic bombing. In Germany, the psychological impact is equally significant. The attack reveals that British bombers can concentrate in numbers far beyond previous expectations. Civil defense organizations reassess procedures. Military planners study how their radar and night fighter systems were strained. The sense of vulnerability deepens. No city now feels entirely beyond reach, yet the raid does not end the war, nor does it cripple German industry overnight. Factories continue operating. Repairs begin immediately. Germany adapts, dispersing production and improving defenses. The strategic bombing campaign will become a prolonged and controversial struggle, measured not only in industrial output, but in immense human suffering on all sides. Still, something fundamental changed on the night of May 30–31, 1942. Before that night, large-scale area bombing remained an uncertain concept. After that night, it became central to Allied strategy. The technical lessons are equally important. The concentrated bomber stream proves more effective against the Kamm-Huber line than dispersed attacks. Time over target planning, route discipline, and mixed bomb loads become key elements of future operations. As navigation and target marking improve, the scale and accuracy of attacks increase. The raid on Cologne is followed by other 1,000 bomber raids against cities such as Essen and Bremen. Each operation refines tactics and expands the destructive reach of the air offensive. For the civilians of Cologne, however, history is measured in more personal terms. In the gray light of dawn, people emerge from shelters into a city transformed. Familiar streets are buried under brick and broken glass. Smoke drifts between damaged buildings. Fire crews continue battling flames. Families search for relatives, documents, and anything salvageable from collapsed homes. The cathedral still stands. Its survival offers a stark visual contrast, ancient stone rising above neighborhoods of ruin. For many witnesses, the image becomes unforgettable. For the air crews who return to England, the experience is harder to process. Some speak confidently during debriefing, focusing on headings, altitudes, and bomb release times. Others say little. They have seen aircraft explode in midair, burning cities beneath them and the empty sea below. They know they have taken part in something historic, but they also know the war is far from over. Tonight's success means there will be more missions, and each mission will demand more lives. As weeks turn into months, the strategic bombing campaign grows larger and more destructive. Lancasters eventually become the dominant heavy bomber. Pathfinders improve target marking. Radar aids like H2S and navigation systems such as G increase effectiveness. Entire urban regions become recurring targets. The debate over strategic bombing continues to this day. Supporters argue that the offensive forced Germany to divert resources, weakened transportation, disrupted production, and placed relentless pressure on the enemy. Critics point to the vast civilian casualties and question the morality and effectiveness of area bombing. The raid on Cologne sits at the center of that debate. It was both a military innovation and a human tragedy. It demonstrated operational skill on an unprecedented scale. It also showed what industrialized air warfare could do to a city in a single night. If you listen closely, the most haunting part of the story may not be the explosions. It is the sound that came first, the low rumble of engines starting across England, the footsteps of crews walking toward waiting aircraft, the final wave from ground crews standing in the dark, the steady drone over the North Sea, the sirens in Cologne, and then for 90 minutes, a sky so crowded with bombers that it seemed the night itself was made of machines. When morning came on May 31, 1942, the sound was gone. English airfields grew quiet again. Mechanics refueled surviving aircraft. Clerks updated loss lists. Exhausted crews tried to sleep. Across the Rhine, smoke rose above Cologne. Between those two silences lay one of the most important nights of the Second World War. It did not end the conflict. It did not force Germany to surrender. But it proved that Britain could assemble 1,000 aircraft, send them deep into enemy territory, and strike with a force no one had seen before. From that night forward, air warfare entered a new era. The skies over Europe would never be the same again.
If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below.